computer. And how do I share my screen? Share screen. Doom. Okay. So today's topic, as I mentioned, I thought it would be particularly appropriate for Daniel, but Ben, I think this is going to be really helpful for you too. Dennis, I think this will be helpful for everybody, but we don't know each other well enough where I can definitively say this can be a game changer for you, but let's tune in. So the topic for today is rationality. I have a somewhat unique perspective on rationality, simply because of how I'm oriented to think. I grew up as a very linear thinker, very mathematically oriented, very logical. Right, my baseball team in college would always tell me I'm overanalyzing things. You're overanalyzing it. You're overanalyzing it. It's like, okay, well, maybe you're underanalyzing it, right? I wanted to, I thought that there was a definitive answer that could be arrived at for everything. And I thought that logic was the best method to get there. In fact, almost the entire education system is built around logic and rationality. And it's probably taken me, up to my ripe old age of 35, basically up until maybe the last year or two to kind of figure out the strengths and weaknesses of rationality, because rationality does have weaknesses and it does help you as an individual trying to get by in the world to understand what, some of these weaknesses relating to rationality are. Rationality is a very good tool for a couple reasons. It allows people to come to true false answers, right? And it's very scalable. You can tell if something is obviously wrong, right? Because the answers on the test will be not correct. And you can say that this is irrational. This is an incorrect answer. It's very scalable in that regards, because there is, if you apply logic to a lot of things, there's limited angles of attack, angles of dispute, if something is in fact logical. Let's move down. And as I mentioned, a big difference between people who have jobs working for other people versus entrepreneurs who can succeed for themselves. Jobs are, for the most part, up until you're making like a few $100,000, they're very much oriented around not doing bad things. School is oriented around not doing bad things. Do not get the wrong question, or do not get the question wrong. It orients your mind to believe that that perfection is the absence of flaws. Unfortunately, perfection is not the absence of flaws. Perfection actually includes many flaws because it doesn't exist. Number one, perfection only exists like geometrically or within somebody's idea, somebody's mind. But then the other thing around perfection is that in the real world, oftentimes the best performers are not perfect, right? Oftentimes the best performers are actually so good at something that it overcomes the thing that they're bad at that's closely related to the thing that they're good at. Okay, so let's give Donald Trump as an example, a very polarizing guy, right? And not rational by many people's standards. Yet somehow he was successful, and you can say that he inherited his businesses from his dad, which is true. But he was still able to not have them fail to this date. Like, he did declare bankruptcy a couple of times. His businesses did fail at times, but he was able to, get them back going. And so, the question is, how can somebody who's so irrational be successful? Daniel, this will be, helpful for you, but something I mentioned, I think in the first class, is whenever you see something out of place. So whenever you see somebody succeed where that person should not be successful, and you see that over and over again, take note of it, because there's a reason. And oftentimes it's related to a trade-off that the person is subconsciously making. between being good at what everybody else is, but not being really good at what that person is, versus being not good at what everybody else is good at, and being very good at the thing that person's good at. So key better's insight: if you ever see like a fat kid pitching in a college game, or a fat guy playing in a not fat guy sport in college, that fat guy is probably a lot better than his athletic looking counterpart, because nobody would have given that person a chance purely based on his looks. And so that person would have had to have proven himself out over a higher bar than the average person. Now, how does this pertain to rationality? Well, a lot of really successful people, Steve Jobs, is another great example. Kanye West is another example. They say things that most people think are insane, but they make sense to them somehow. And what a lot of people don't realize is, if they were more rational, they would be less capable of achieving greatness. Because a big difference, and I'll get into this later, is irrational people sometimes can think more abstractly. They can think, well, all we need to do is A, B, and C to get it done. So I don't really care that everybody else has failed. I don't care that the success rate appears to be 101%, because the sample size is not the same as us. We are different. In order to be successful in life, overconfidence is incredibly important. I don't know if you guys have read much about overconfidence biases, but if you ask somebody, are you above average at this? How do you rate yourself? Above average, average, below average? At almost every task, people will say that they're above average. Obviously, this can't be the case. Only 50% or 49.999% of people can be, in fact, above average. So if this incorrect thought persists in the minds of billions and billions of people, how could this possibly be? How do you guys think it could be?
Well, no one wants to be bad at what they do.
Well, obviously nobody wants to be bad, but literally 90% of people will say they're above average drivers. 90% of people think they're above average intelligence. How can so many people, and this is consistent across any activity, right? So why do you guys think that so many people are so irrational in this regard?
Do they compare themselves to how good they used to be?
They could.
Yeah.
Ben, what do you think?
I don't know.
What do you think?
I mean, I just feel like people have like this, like when you're looking at yourself, I guess you like compare all your good qualities and overlook like the bad ones. Most people do. Is where like some people look at like the bad ones. Like I look at the bad like qualities of myself more than the good ones, where like I feel like a majority of people look at more of the good ones and the good things they do.
Mm-hmm. Well, why? They could look at the bad things too.
What if it's just a survival mechanism? Think about it. Like when you're a sperm cell, you're competing against how many millions of sperm. They all think they're the best. They're going to just try as hard as it can do. And it doesn't matter if they're not good or not. They're still going to swim up that uterus.
Yeah.
And whichever one gets there first is going to be the winner. And so perhaps you just it's just we're hardwired to think we're the best. It's the same like as couch quarterbacks, they say.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
So I very much agree with that. I actually think so. It's obvious with me saying it, but it's worth repeating because it's not necessarily obvious to somebody who grew up in the 21st century or 20th century and 21st century, is that the human brain is built for survival. And in situations where times are grim, like an ice age or a famine, if you held a rational view of what the likelihood of you getting your next meal was, or you surviving, you would quit. And so what is so important in life, whether you're trying to succeed or merely survive, is not ever quitting. And the irrational people with irrational self-confidence are much more inclined to not ever quit. And a lot of them will keep trying until they're successful. And then when they succeed, oftentimes that success is somewhat parabolic, right? Or exponential. And so a lot of the startup game, a lot of life in general is not like how hard you can work. It's how much discomfort and uncertainty can you endure until things break your way. And more rational people are very, very bad at enduring the pain that is inextricably tied with any new endeavor that would lead to growth. Does that make sense? Have I lost anybody? Does anybody disagree? Because that's what I think, but you guys might not think that that's true.
No, I agree with that.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Cool.
Yeah.
Oops. Well, we talked about this. One thing that really opened my eyes to this when I was younger is I don't gamble at casinos because I know the game is rigged. It's a business. Casinos bring people in because they know that all of the games that they offer are statistically based and will confer the benefit to them every time. The longer the person stays, the more likely that person will lose all of his money. And there's nothing that you can do to make the cards draw in your favor. That being said, a lot of successful people, a lot of competitive athletes have gambling problems. So, or just gamble a lot, right? I couldn't figure out why that was when I was younger. But the reality is people who believe that they have a better than average chance of succeeding are more likely to succeed. And this, you can actually draw parallels to how COVID works because, irrespective of the right-left difference in vaccination rates and in view of institutions and evaluation of honesty or dishonesty of public officials, I would bet that people who lean right are more likely to think that they have good luck than people who lean left. And they're more likely to believe that an event that might pose them a 10% risk, or the average person a 10% risk, will pose them a 5% risk. It would actually be a very, very good study to do, where if you showed somebody data and you said 1 out of 10 people falls victim to X, Y, and Z, what do you think the chances are that you would fall victim to X, Y, and Z? My bet is that left-leaning people will say 10%. My bet also is that right-leaning people will say, I bet it's like 5% because I'm different and I'm better. And the reality is, if you want to get out of a corporate role, you want to achieve things you haven't achieved. Well, guess what? Corporate jobs are designed to motivate you to be incrementally better. But if they try to inspire you too much, you will leave because you will realize that the thing that they're believing or they're trying to convince you that you're capable of simply cannot be achieved within the confines of their company. So they want to manage your ambitions such that they only align with promotions within the company. And if you're too ambitious, it's not going to work because, you'll just find that the company doesn't suit you the way you want it to. High achievers are different. Kobe Bryant, Michael Jordan, Charles Barkley. They all think that they deserve to win. And the belief that they deserve to win, oftentimes, and I found this in my own life, the belief that somebody deserves to win oftentimes precedes the work ethic that is in fact necessary to win. So a lot of people that I've met in my life will tell you, Alex is very arrogant. I've heard this since I was 17 years old. But one thing that's different about my arrogance versus common arrogance is my arrogance precedes work ethic, because my inflated ego motivates me to work hard to justify having an inflated ego. Whereas, oftentimes other people's inflated egos will incentivize them a little bit to rest on their laurels. And, depending on how you navigate an ego, if you're able to use it as fuel, you will be more successful than the person who doesn't have an ego. So we're taught in schools, don't have an ego, don't be arrogant, fall in line, you're not better, we're all equal. Well, guess what? Successful people do not believe that we're all equal. Successful people believe that we are very much unequal. And they try very hard to maximize the inequalities that they experience within their lives and that other people experience in theirs. They're not egalitarian. They are selfish, and they're very good at working to achieve the things that they need to achieve to advance their own selfish goals. Does anybody any disagreements or particular insights to come back with? Daniel, what do you think? Oh, you're muted, by the way.
My internet just cut out. What was the last thing you said? I heard about irrational, about like Michael Jordan. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. How do I quickly re-summarize this? Extremely successful people are highly irrational. They're very arrogant in the eyes of other people. And some people will say they succeeded in spite of their arrogance, but I disagree. I think they succeeded because of their arrogance, because their arrogance and their belief in their own deserving to have more than the next person preceded the work ethic that was necessary for them to be successful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, I think a lot of it is, if you're not on your own, I mean, I don't know. I've definitely seen it where when I'm actually confident in myself, it's like a cyclical effect where it kind of feeds into itself. Same thing if I'm not feeling great about something. Yeah, I mean, I've definitely seen people in my life who are like, I'm not really sure how you're succeeding in this, but they just kind of keep going, even though they don't really seem qualified, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
No, I think it is true. It's just a matter of kind of tapping into that sort of unbridled confidence in yourself. Not really sure how to do that as a thing.
Yeah. Guys, give me 1 second. I know I apologize. I would take an intermission. I think this will be like 1 second or so, but just hang out. Give me grace.
Wonder what he's getting done to the house.
I know you said they'll be fine. I trust it. But I'm just thinking when I resell the house, that tile, Yeah, it doesn't. Yeah. Is this on top of you? You think it's all on top? Yeah, because we tested it. We know they're not going to break. I don't really care what other people care about. So. Maybe if I want to fill that, it's good enough. Only for low, they have some special colors for towel, same. Yeah. Just buy a color. It's just more bottom like. Yeah. Okay. So, yeah. But this is not a long track. Yeah, I know it's not that. Yeah. I'm gonna be on my call. Yes. I'm gonna be on for it. Yes. Yes, thank you.
you don't follow the order, your texture as can become regular part. Okay. If you small bottle, it's like a paint pass. It's a stain, especially yeah, especially yeah. Thank you for coming. Yeah.
I know you think it looks the same, but I think it looks a lot better. Thank you.
All right, sir.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Cool. Thanks, guys. So I think what you'll find with a lot of successful people is very commonly they're thought to be arrogant, right? It's it goes a couple ways. A lot of times they say, "Oh, this person's so humble." Like, yeah, that's true. A lot of times humility can limit the amount of people who get in your way. So in that regard, humility is a good thing. But a lot of times, if you actually believe it, if you actually believe that you're no better than the next person, you will not achieve anything more than the next person. And Daniel, I know, like, being in corporate jobs, Ben in institutions, Dennis just living life. We are constantly surrounded by people who are trying to manipulate us, cultural ideas that tell us to, you're not better than the next person. All men are created equal. Bullshit. All men are not created equal. And your job on this earth is to maximize the inequality that you can create versus other people. And obviously you want to help people out. You don't want to be like that rich, lonesome person who has no friends because he screwed everybody else over to hoard money. At the same time, you probably need to be like 5 or 10% of the way there if you're going to have the skin thickness that's necessary to endure the stress of breaking free, breaking out of a system and doing something on your own the way you want it to. Did I miss anything, guys, on rationality? Tell me why it's better. Tell me why I'm wrong.
I don't have anything for you on that.
Dennis?
What do you think? So I'm wondering about the arrogance part. I'm wondering if for most people it comes off as it sounds arrogant, but in reality, a lot of these people we're talking about, they have a sense of destiny.
Yes.
And it has nothing to do with anything else of them trying to be arrogant or trying to be rude or anything of that nature, but they have a sense of destiny that they will be this person.
Right.
And it's really just kind of an eyes on the prize.
That's exactly what it is, Dennis. That is exactly what it is.
Yeah.
That my view and what I put in this slide, because in order to be successful, it helps very much to have a vision. If you see a goal, you're much more likely to put the work in to hit that goal, which makes you much more likely to succeed and hit that goal. Okay. But if you see something that nobody else sees, and you're obviously going to be more confident that you can grab it than the person who can't see it. And so if you convey the confidence in yourself that would be indicative of this belief, that in and of itself will threaten a lot of people. Now, I'm not saying to have an approach to life that will intentionally threaten people for the purpose of threatening people. But what I am saying is being able to see something that others don't. Anytime that's the case, be confident in it. If you've thought about something for a couple 100 hours and nobody else believes you, but it makes sense to you and you sanity check that you can't see why it's wrong, you're probably right. Any intelligent person who applies dozens of hours towards thinking about something and comes to a conclusion that's different from what most people have thought of for 30 minutes about an issue is probably right. If you've thought 100 times longer than other people about why something must be true, and 99% of people disagree with you because they haven't spent 100 hours thinking about it, you're probably right. So don't ever give up the confidence that you have in your ability when those circumstances exist.
Whew. That was good. That was good.
Nice. Well, if we have any questions on this, happy to cover them. And then I will get into calorie counting on the next slide, which will be a repeat for Ben, but so is a lot of the fitness stuff anyway. So whatever.
All good.
No, Dennis, that's a pretty cool mug you got.
Thank you. My girlfriend got it for me. It's like a horn type of thing.
Nice, nice,
yeah.
nice. All right, well, now I will go down. And Daniel, Dan, so Daniel's working with Dan Go. Dan knows that I don't believe in the calorie counting stuff, and I know that he does. He's a good guy. So I will stick to, I guess I will declare what is real science versus bro science. So you guys can make determinations for yourselves. And I'll also qualify for when calorie counting isn't bullshit. So one thing that's important to know about eating on a calorie-based system is the labeling on packages is not true. And this is actually something that kind of goes back to the rationality thing. It's just because it's a number doesn't mean the number's right. The FDA permits food companies to be off by up to 20% on their labeling. And as you know, companies and individuals don't always abide by the rules that they're required to stay within, right? You don't always stay within your own lane when you drive. Sometimes you will merge into other lanes. Sometimes you take 2 lanes. Sometimes you take 2 parking spots. Very rarely do you get tickets for it. So I would look at the 20% margin of error rather than being something on the extreme. I would say that it's pretty normal. I bet the average calorie label is off by 15% or so, 12%, something like that, because they don't have to be accurate. And chances are they're going to be inaccurate to the downside just because that's going to allow them to sell more products, particularly if it's a consumer packaged good. But they could be 20% off to the upside too. And maybe this is the case with the restaurant that's selling you a 10-ounce steak that's actually 6 ounces, or a 16-ounce steak that's actually 12 ounces. So you need to know that the standards and measurements for ingesting food are not true. You need to, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't count calories ever. So who is best suited to count calories? It's people whose intuition will be off by a greater amount than the calorie labels are off, right? So if you're like a highly hormonal person, right? Like a lot of women around, especially around their periods, their cravings get like very disoriented. For people like that, it might make sense to go on a strictly calorically managed diet. For many healthy individuals who are not obese, have no real metabolic issues or anything like that, they will oftentimes have their appetite self-regulate if they simply consume protein-dominant real food. And what that means from a self-regulation standpoint is go try to eat 20 ounces of steak. It's really, really hard to do, right? And you know when you're full because the food stops tasting good and you stop wanting to eat more of it. So, so this is one thing for why calorie counting in and of itself is a mechanism that's very, it's like a packaged thing. You can package it up, sell it, explain it to a lot of people, but that doesn't mean that it's true. Calories burned also cannot be measured. The reason it can't be measured is, in order to determine the calories that you're actually burning, like they probably need to kill you or something like that. And so the way that calorie counts are, exist is that, let's see. The way calorie counts exist is that they will take breathing tests of a bunch of people. They'll measure the, what the person has spit out, and they'll take the components of it, all that, the chemistry, and they will be able to say, okay, you burned this amount of calories in 10 minutes, and we're going to multiply that times, 6 for an hour times 24 for a day, and then we're going to say this is how many calories your base metabolic rate is in a day. We're going to look at 100 individuals. We're going to segment them by age and sex and body weight and lean mass. And then based on the means, this is how we're going to deduce what your caloric burn rate is. Now, that doesn't mean that you are average, right? So all these systems are done under the assumption that you're average, but like my caloric burn is 30% greater than what somebody of my age, sex, and lean muscle mass would be. So if I tried to run on a calorically managed system, and ideally, if you guys are doing my training system, you'll probably feel like there's something similar going on there. You'll burn more calories than what the calculators say you'll burn, even if the activity in the gym isn't stacking on calories to what your base metabolic rate is. And so if you're not average, and I encourage you guys to believe that you're not average, you actually need a customized solution to all of your problems. You're not going to be able to find something on the internet as a one-size-fits-all plan and say, well, if I just do the one-size-fits-all plan better than everybody else, I'll have a better physique. Doesn't work. You need to find customization for your particular needs so that you can be better. And I think that's one of the deficits of very rational people, is that they think if they can do a one-size-fits-all plan better than everybody else, they will win. If I get the best grades at the best institution, I will win. But that's wrong, because that's very much linear thinking, like we talked about, I think, on a previous discussion. Linear thinking has its limits. Exponential thinking requires you believing that you're different and creating solutions for yourself that enable you to express your differences better. Anybody have questions about that or challenges to what I'm saying?
I like it.
Cool. Well, if we took a survey on topics for next week, what would you guys like to go over? I won't necessarily. I'll probably modify anything that you guys say to how I think I can make it as juicy as possible. But if you have any ideas, let me know now or let me know in the chat.
Maybe starting a new venture, like a business.
Okay. Yeah. All right. We can do that.
That'd be really interesting, actually.
Yeah, I like that. I like that.
Okay, cool. Well, I'll go through, and I'll give my own perspective on a lot of the things that you won't hear in any other discussion because the person will get canceled. So cool, guys. Well, if that's cool, I will hop off and pay my contractor. I appreciate you guys bearing with me for that couple minutes. I will also throw this up on YouTube. Not that you guys need that link, but for other Daniel, who's not on the call, he will appreciate that. His mom died last week, so be kind to him when he has returned.
Sure.
Cool, guys. Peace out.
Hey, later, Alex.
See you guys.
Yes.
Bye, guys.